Moogle Tomestones. What are they? What do you need to know? What is the pattern here? We're going to talk about the Moogle Tomestones Treasure Trove upcoming December 12th, going into patch 6.3, the Hunt for Creation. But I want to talk about not just what does this offer and what should you try to get from it versus what might be worth passing on, but the patterns here, because these events sometimes catch us off guard, they sometimes surprise us, but actually they are immensely predictable. So first, these are events where they incentivize people coming in and playing old content leading into a patch. This is a chance for people to be encouraged to do content maybe they haven't done in a long time. The content that is asked of you does change from Moogle event to Moogle event. There's been some patterns in the past, and as those change, I'd love to get into like, when was the best time to get Moogle Tomestones? What's the average time to get a Moogle Tomestone? But that requires a little more data than I'm going to have today. So just know that as you run various types of events, which will be flagged inside your UI with a little Moogle head there, that you're going to get varying amounts. The PvP ones, there's a difference between winning and losing, but largely it's just clear the content. You're going to see a lot of people setting up blue mage farms to run whatever they can as fast as possible. Most notably, there does seem to be an emphasis on the Hildebrand trials this time around, as opposed to things like Aram Vale. Then we go to any of the three main capital cities, and we turn things in. This is where it gets to be interesting. We are going to be turning in Moogle Tomestones uniquely from this event. The Moogle Tomestones this time around are called Creation, which was originally from patch 4.05. Before this was Verity, Scripture, Lore, and so on, all the way back to Philosophy, which means this is our 10th tome in order of the tomes as they were introduced to the game since ARR, and as a result, it is the 10th event. If we go back to the original Moogle Tomestones event, we started with Philosophy, we moved all the way forward, and these have been going back as far back as Stormblood. The very first one was released 29 days before Shadowbringers. The Hunt for Philosophy launched May 30th of 2019. We then had another one of these with patch 5.1, 5.2, 5.3. We skipped 5.4, had one for 5.5, and then one just loosely floating before 0.55555. We did one going into Endwalker. One was 6.1, 6.2, and 6.3. So it is reasonable to believe that their target is to have one of these married with every single patch. What these do is these hype us into the patch basically 29 days before the patch. That is the traditional line. That does mean that while they have not confirmed it, patch 6.3 would be January 10th. If Creation is our predictor, that starts to tell us things like when the live letter is, which I would predict is December 30th. But they have not announced that either. And these are typically announced about a week out, and they are made up of some patterns. What goes in a Moogle Tomestone event? Well, the first thing is there will be a unique cosmetic. This time it is the Namatsu Neckerchief. These cost 100 tomestones every time, and they are exclusive to these events. They are not, however, exclusive to just this one event. The Namatsu Neckerchief has been in one of these before. And so here is every single Moogle Tomestone event that there has ever been. And we see the Namatsu Neckerchief is right here. And yet, if I go check for Namatsu, you can see that they have also grabbed other things from the Beast Tribe. They have also had a Namatsu earring available, both during Soldiery and during Philosophy. And the Neckerchief is back. Maybe I'm misspeaking here. We started off with the earring in Philosophy. We added the Neckerchief in Soldiery. And then we've gone back to the earring in Esoterics. And we are back to the Neckerchief in Creation. We have done this with the Shiba earrings in Namatsu as well. And so you can see that we had a Shiba earring if you want to have a little Shiba hanging from your ear. And then we added the Shiba Neckerchief. And I would assume those are going to be the sorts of things that come back that we had the Shiba earring again with Scripture. And so I assume those sorts of things are going to be kind of on loop. There are some that have not repeated, like the Inferno jacket. Nice little leather jacket. Looked really neat. Depending on what dye you put on it, could look really, really cool. And that is how all these events start off. From there, these are also a chance to get extreme mounts. They have done various ones over the years. This time around, we are looking at the Hollowed Kamui. And so you can, of course, mark these, and that may start to make you wonder what these colors are. Green is what I have marked as the source, means it is very easy to go farm that up anytime you want. The Hollow Kumi, if you wanted to, you could grab some friends, go knock Siryu down a bunch of times, you'd get a bunch of mounts, it would be no big deal. Red means it is exclusive to this event. Yellow means technically you can get it without these events, but in my opinion, you're much better off grabbing it from the Moogle Tomestones, even if you don't enjoy grabbing Moogle Tomestones, as opposed to the greens. If you like running old extremes, that's better than farming up Moogle Tomestones. So do whatever way you want. If you like crafting, go do any of these Sky Builders stuff. That's the better source. We also see the albino caracal horn, which comes from Sky Builders scripts. This is the Ishgard Restoration. This is not market prohibited. It's currently priced around 900k. The previous one was the Ufeti horn, around 800k. Having 50 Moogle Tomestones for just 8,400 Sky Builder scripts is actually a bargain. Because when they first started pulling from these Sky Builder scripts, we've seen Modern Aesthetics for just 1,800 scripts being 50 full tomes. We've seen the 4,200 mount. If we go back, the Pegasus Whistle back in Philosophy was 50 Moogle Tomestones for 4,200 Sky Builder scripts. So you are saving yourself a fair bit of crafting by grabbing this albino caracal, if that's something that interests you. And then we get into the Falcon Ignition Key. And the Falcon Ignition Key has kind of been one of those pain points for the community that I think these events have given a chance to kind of like make people forget. The Falcon Ignition Key was originally available through a subscription campaign where if you were subscribed a certain number of months within a specific time window, that was the only way to get this mount. The Falcon mount is a pretty cool looking mount. It looks great. So locking it behind that doesn't feel good. However, Creation is not the first time this was available besides the subscription campaign. This has been brought back in the Moogle Tomestones. The last time we had a chance for it was back in March of 2021. The Falcon Ignition Key was available again. And before that, it was actually available in Mythology back in January of 2020, with the Falcon Ignition Key being available there as well. So this is going to be the 4th time this has been produced as something that people can participate in as long as they participate. So there is a little bit of FOMO there, but like you're not truly missing out. You're just taking time until it comes back around. From here, we get into the various ballroom etiquettes. They've made a lot of these available over the years through these various events. This one is just a Sky Builders one. It's not particularly hard to get. There is a second one, Overzealous Affirmations. That's tied to Eureka. Anything tied to Eureka, I go ahead and put in yellow because that can be something that you would probably want to find an organized group for. So we've seen them pull Pagos and Pyros and Animos. So they pulled from there. The Tyrannosaur was one. This is, I got my Tyrannosaur from actually being in Animos, but a lot of things, Moogle Tomestones are how I have them. I think Moogle Tomestones is how I got like my Nightmare mount. So a lot of these things that require a little bit more effort, this is a great chance to kind of ask yourself, what's the source? Because these kind of cost, as soon as you get into this 30 and 50 range, they cost just enough. And so I would say at 30 for 1,800 scripts, whatever you want, but at 50 to save yourself having to go farm Hydatos, that seems absolutely worth it in my opinion. As we jump into Orchestran Scrolls, some of these have been very, very, very rare over the years. And if you want to know if you have these, now I'd like to plug Lala Achievements. Thank you so much to Lala Achievements for bringing this into my life. Collect everything. You do have to go ahead and authenticate your account to be able to track anything below minions because it's not available to them to just pull down. But once you do, you can go in here and you can teach it what orchestrons you have. When you get one, you have to come in here and press check. If you don't have it, you just uncheck it. No big deal. But this helps me know what I have and don't have if I want to track things like this. And actually, not for every item available, but they have a Moogle Treasure Trove button down here that will show me every item available. And then we'll also go through and make a reasonable effort at saying, hey, you're actually missing the Siryu Hollowed Kamui. You're missing the 8,400 Sky Builders scripts. if you don't want to go get those from those sources, this would be a great chance to get that, as opposed to, you can see I do have some of these things down below, where now I don't need to worry about going and farming up any of the ones for like Xanthos, Enbar, and all that. I typically like to get the ones from my actual reputation, because the reputations are easy, except for Ixali. Ixali is a real journey. So if you know you're never going to do Ixali, these direwolf whistles are something that pop up during Moogle Tomestone events all the time. We've had one here. The last time the direwolf was available from a Moogle Tomestone event has been a little while. And so if we kind of scroll back through the mounts up here, these direwolves used to be around all the time back in Esoterics and before. So March and May, you can see that they actually used to make all these tribal mounts available, and they don't really do that anymore. So this might be a chance to grab that. Maybe it'll come back with the 6.4 Moogle Tomestone event. Maybe it won't, but at 30, that's definitely a lot easier than grabbing Moogle Tomestone, as opposed to Amal-Jah is very easy. Remember, you can fly in that zone now. Very, very easy to grab it from there. As we look at the various Orchestron scrolls, Ancient City and Heartless ones, we jump over. I've been putting those down at the bottom. These come from dungeons, raids, things like that. So we've got Alphascape and Amdapor. We knew that Heartless was coming because it was Alphascape 4.0. Before that, it was Alphascape 3.0's music. Before that, it was 2.0 and 1.0. Then we move back to Sigmascape and Deltascape. So there's been a little bit of a pattern with what it's dropping, so we can kind of predict when these will be coming up if you're waiting on a particular scroll. And then we can talk about the ostensibly special Time-Worn map. The ostensibly special Time-Worn maps are, you get 2 maps, they stack, you can build up as many as you want, they are guaranteed to drop portals. These are something that is in there almost every single time now. These are a great deal. I do mark them as exclusive, but maps are not something that's hard to do. But the ostensiblies have been with us since lore, back in October of 2021. And before that, we went without them for quite a while. They were originally in the seemingly special Time-Worn maps way back in May of 2019. But since then, we really haven't always seen maps until fairly recent history. Now they are come to be expected. If they ever disappear, it won't be a big deal. The Spotted Fedora here and the Ishgardian Half-Bardays. These are optional cosmetics. If you want to get these are tied to doing old fates. Farming old fates that are on specific timers requires that you go join a Discord. You maybe have to jump worlds or servers or whatever. It is a lot easier to just hop in and grind a little bit of these tomestones during the 29-day window if these are something you're interested in. The Spotted Fedora has been one that we've seen before. We have not seen the Spotted Fedora available from this since January of 2020. So a lot of these things are looping back around, just like our extreme mounts, the Xanthos Enbar and the Darkened Sophic. Those are not only mounts that we have seen from Moogle Tomestones in the past from extremes, but we have seen those exact combinations before, with Xanthos and Enbar, for example. And so Xanthos and Enbar was exactly in that combination back in October of 2021. So these events are recycling the same ideas, they're just putting them together in a new way. And that is really where I'd kind of stop. You can get all these mounts from it. You could use it as an MGP farm. But from here, we get into a lot of very, very easy to acquire stuff that you can get anytime you want. All these crafted items and stuff and the gear, that is all to highlight a lot of the like user submitted like design competition type stuff. So it's a neat way to highlight them. But they are not very many tomes. And more importantly, they are not very hard to make. They are not very hard to make either with the crafter or going to the market board. Many times these are under 10,000 gil a piece, or they are available through something like Centurio seals or allied seals or something like that. A lot of this stuff is very easy. There are dungeon drops, and so we've seen these various ones over the years with these different cosmetics. Those started, actually, I think they started with pageantry. Is when they started regularly using that as a chance to highlight the various things that the players have contributed to the design of the game. But it's been around ever since. Riding maps are literally just gold stars. So if I hop over here and I go to travel and I go to mount speed, they are literally just gold stars. They do not affect your flying speed. There is no reason to worry about these. It's just, do I want these stars to turn gold? like I made these stars turn gold. You get them from allied seals, but they literally don't matter anymore. These days, they feature one region each and every time. Creation will be featuring the Shroud. Last time we featured Thanalan. The time before that was Lenosha. They appear on rotation. It used to be that they were every single time. They only cost 10 seals apiece. If you go back, they used to be 15, and before that, they were 30. So as it's gotten less and less useful to have these stars, they've made them cheaper and cheaper, but they are still available in this way if you literally just want to check them off. I'd like to see them add some achievements and stuff for like having all of them, something to encourage completionists to go do this, but they don't. Triple Triad cards and minions are how I always finish these out. There's anywhere between 3 and 4 Triple Triad cards from each one. Some are available from dungeons or raids. Some are available just from trainers or from packs. It can vary. Any one Triple Triad card that has been from this has always been something that I have thought is reasonably acquirable on its own. What makes Triple Triad collection hard to me is not where any one card comes from. It's the fact that if one rare card gets followed by another rare card, gets followed by another rare card, you've put a huge amount of effort in this week, and you're finishing the week with 2 or 3 new cards. And so that's really hard. It's really hard to want to sit there and grind something that, you know, you're trying to get many of these. But if you're just trying to get these 4 cards and you miss this event, no one of these 4 cards is going to be problematic. It would be worth grabbing them if you just have extra ones. Maybe you're using this event to go run old content with alts you want to level or something like that, or you're enjoying Blue Mage with friends and these just pile up. Go ahead and burn it on the cards if you don't have them, but otherwise, meh. The Wind-Up Meat Eater is just 800 Centurio seals. That's less than an hour's worth of work. It's not nearly as hard as some of the ones that have been from, like, the different maps. But as we've seen things like material containers get added to the game, a lot of these ones that I would have one day thought was hard, like the Dwarf Rabbit, become not that hard to get because they're in those material containers. And once it enters the material container, that also means that it tends to plummet on the market board. And so a lot of these are 10,000 gil or under when they add them. And anybody who, if they have any value at all during this event, people all buy them up and the price plummets even more because there's way too much supply. So I don't know that the Meat Eater is really going to be problematic, but if you want it later, it's not hard to get. The Orchestron rolls, this is something that this is actually easy to check how you collect these in-game. You can go to your Orchestron list, you can see the ones you have and don't have, and you can see even where they come from if you don't have them. So it's very easy to see these. The 4 that we are getting this time are 2 that we get from Beast Tribes. Those have been around before in these events. We have seen the Smoldering and the Vanu be on these lists back as far back as 2020. But we're not getting any of the really rare ones. We've had some really rare ones in the past. I'd love to see those come back as a neat way to encourage this. But instead, it's just Lost City of Amdapor and an Alphascape thing. And so that is the event. We've got a bunch of cosmetics. We've got a bunch of mounts. They're neat ways to engage. They encourage you to go back and run all this stuff. If you haven't done Hildy, I encourage you to do it. If you'd like to do Hildy and skip all the story, at least maybe slow down and consider doing these synced the first time, because it is a chance to have 3 trials you've never seen before, and they can be a little chaotic, and they're level 50 and 70, and so, like, even if it goes off the rails, it tends to be 1 or 2 pulls, and it dies. I had one group, we took the 3rd pull because people were just dying to all sorts of things. It's chaos, it's fun, it's worth doing. But that's kind of it. That is my kind of recommendation for the upcoming Treasure Trove event. Maybe with future Treasure Trove events, we'll dive even deeper and we'll talk about how it's changed, where the different Moogle Tomestones come from, as we look out and we expect 6.4 to get Mendacity. We'll be on the hunt for Mendacity as we go into 6.4. Based on kind of when these patches are going, I think that with patch 6.3 being January 10th as my estimated release date, I would estimate that 6.4 is going to be probably at the end of May. And so if we want to see when the hunt for Mendacity will be, we can go ahead and I can grab this and I can just back this in. So this is somewhere probably in probably April 24th. That's 29 days out. So if I'm going to be correct, that will be announced the week before. So we will see that announcement on the 17th of April. That 1 week from then, on April 24th, we will be getting the hunt, and it will be for Mendacity. And that's guessing. That's just wildly guessing. I also predict kind of the live letters. These are all 74 live letters that we have had to date. I do think live letter 75 would historically be, they're typically about 11 days before the patch is kind of when they're supposed to be, unless you add 2 weeks for a 2-week delay and then add pre-order time on top of that, because that's how I track Endwalker launch. So they're typically kind of that 11 days before, unless there's something like a Fan Fest or PAX that moves it to that 10 days before, because maybe they're in a different time zone or whatever. And so I would expect that to be not New Year's Eve, but the day before New Year's Eve, on the 30th of December. Maybe they have to move it because of the holidays. Maybe that's something they don't want to do. But traditionally, that's where I would see live letter 75 being relative to that. That does put our next ultimate on the 24th of January. So an exciting time to be in game, an exciting time to be getting back in, dusting things off, getting back in the swing of things, and the Moogle Tomestone event is a perfect way to do that.